Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm back with part 2 of our epic 5-part trip through the comic stores of southern New Hampshire. Because, as I mentioned last time, my wife and I were on an unexpected vacation where we had to leave the house due to the mold remediation, and we planned the trip around visiting as many comic stores as we could. We ended up going to 10 comic stores in 6 days. Last time I hit the 2 comic stores in Keene, which were great stores. Today, in this video, we're going to be going to 3 more comic book stores. 2 in Concord, New Hampshire, and 1 in Manchester, New Hampshire. So let's just jump right into it. First, let's put them up on the map. This is a new map that's just New Hampshire, and we'll put all 3 of those stores up here on the map. Today we're going to be visiting, let me just double check my notes. Collectibles Unlimited. You start to lose track when you go to this many stores. Collectibles Unlimited in Concord, and then Double Midnight Comics in Concord and Double Midnight Comics in Manchester. So, the first of these stores, Collectibles Unlimited, I didn't get any footage on the inside. There's just a little bit on the outside. You have to know that the comic store is there, which is easy enough if you do a Google for comic shops when you're going through the Concord area. It will pop up, but there's no sign on the building. I didn't get any footage on the inside. It's a clean space, relatively small, and it's a lot of gaming stuff. They have a ton of comics there, right? So I don't want you to think it's just gaming. There are a ton of comics. In fact, they had the long boxes out on the floor were numbered, and I think they went up to like 200. So there are hundreds of long boxes of comics. The stuff they had on the floor was the newer stuff. It was all like moderns. They have more inventory in the back. That's where they keep the old stuff that I'm interested in. But because of space limitations, they weren't able to actually have it out on display, which made it a little bit difficult for me. You know, I like to browse. I have a lot of varied interests. None of the stuff I'm interested in was out on the floor because I don't really collect moderns. The other thing that's a bit of a challenge for me, even though it sounds like in theory it should be great, is that all of their comics are organized alphabetically, all of them. So when I'm looking for stuff in specific genres, like I'm looking for Archie books, I'm looking for romance books, I'm looking for war books, they're not split up like that. You got to give them specific titles, and then they'll go in the back room and they'll look for those. So, for instance, I want a romance, I gave them Young Romance and Young Love. Girls Romance is Girls Love. Because those are right by each other. But, you know, as someone who collects, for instance, Charlton Romance, there's like 28 different titles. It's just impossible. So there were some logistical challenges. The place is great. The people were nice. Ton of great gaming stuff. And again, tons of comics. If you do buy moderns, again, 200 long boxes, all in alphabetical order. This is a place that I think would be great to go to if there's something specific you're looking for. If you're looking for something specific, you'll know exactly where it is, and if they don't have it out front, you can ask for it. They'll go back, and they'll know exactly where it is. So if you have something, but for me, where I just like to browse and see what weird things I can find, that doesn't really work in this sort of scenario. They did have a box. They brought out the A box with the Archie stuff. It's just, you know, some of the Archie titles don't start with A. Blah, blah, blah. So I don't want you to think it's not a good store. It's actually a really good store. Particularly, they had tons of great gaming stuff. They had, this would be interesting, I know, to some of you, because they have a lot of vintage and used RPG, like D&D books from the 80s. So they have a lot of really cool stuff. I ended up only buying one thing. I do want to support the store, so I try to always buy something. And it's this here. It's an Archie number 152. So getting some of these Archies off my list, I have 155 and up at this point, except for 511. Still missing 511. I had no luck finding 511 on this trip. I did look. No luck finding 511. But there's a few issues around here that I actually just had to get rid of because of the mustiness issues. There was a whole lot of them that were musty, and they came all together in this bag, so the mustiness was concentrated, and it gave me an asthma attack. So I had to get rid of all of that. So that's like 7 issues of Archie that I had checked off that are now unchecked from my list. But this is one that I didn't have. It's in pretty nice shape. Technical grade would probably be a 4.5 or a 5 because it does have some staining on the front, but it's tight, it's clean. $15 is a little bit more than I like to pay for Archie's, but it is the first issue cover dated 1965, which means it was published at the end of 64. So I think it's a perfectly reasonable price. I'm just a cheapskate. So the other thing there, though, isn't actually from the store. They had a lot of Warhammer stuff, and one of the things they had for Warhammer was some free books that Warhammer had printed to get you into reading their stuff. I took one of those because directly across the street from Collectibles Unlimited is a little free library. If you're not familiar with those, is people have these things in their yards where they have books that you can just take. It's basically take a book, leave a book. So I went over there and I traded the free book I got from this place, and I ended up with this, which isn't a book at all. It's a board game. It's called Escape from the Evil Garden, an Edward Gorey board game. Of course, we're big fans of Edward Gorey here. We really like the Gorey-inspired game Gloom, and so I'm counting that as part of my haul from the store, because if I hadn't gotten the free book, I wouldn't have had anything to trade for that. So definitely a cool place to check out if you're in Concord. Concord's a really cool little city to check out, and particularly since there are 2 comic book stores here. So later that same day, we went across town to Double Midnight Comics. Now, I was able to get some footage both outside the store and inside the store this time. Now, this is of the 3 stores that I visited in this video, this is the only one where I got the footage inside the store. Again, it's a lot of gaming stuff. They have a nice gaming space. Not so many comics here. And I talked to the person behind the counter, and basically this was a store where they didn't have a big comics presence in terms of back issues, but they have a new manager. So she told me that they're ramping up the stuff, and I could see that. They had some keys on the wall, but also behind the counter, I could see these boxes of like Bronze and Silver Age books. Unfortunately, none of them have been processed yet, so I wasn't able to look through them, which is super frustrating. I could see those yellowy pages right there. I could see a bunch of cool looking books. I could see like some Silver Age Supermans in a pile, but unfortunately, none of them have been processed yet. So I feel like by the time you watch this video, if you go, 6 months from now or something, they'll probably have a lot more comics than they did when I was there. I did buy a few things because I want to support them. So let me just show you what I got. So for $5, I got the blank cover variant of Action number 1000, which I thought was, a solid price for this. But also, I'm curious about, it looks glossier than it should be for a blank. But when I find blanks for cool titles and they're cheap enough, I tend to buy them, particularly in these situations where I'm trying to support a store. I have a Wonder Woman number 1 blank. I've got a few other blanks. I do draw, so at some point I might draw on one of these blanks and maybe give it away for one of my giveaways. Let me know what you think about that down below. When I do my 500 subscriber video, would you guys want to get an Action Comics 1000 where I draw a picture of Superman? I don't know, but I could do something like that. But I do like the blank covers, even though I rarely have anyone draw on them. It's just cool to have them just in case. Just in case. So, and it's cool that it's issue 1000. Here's something I got that I thought was surprisingly cheap and also really cool looking. It is Black Panther number 1 Art Germ Shuri variant. Now, I paid $3 for this, which is pretty good considering the cover price is $5. I got it because it looks really cool. My wife is also a big fan of Black Panther and Shuri in particular. Okoye, who she's really a big fan of, but she loved the movie, and this is such a cool image. Also, Art Germ covers, there's a lot of, I'm not someone who knows a lot about the variant covers, but I have heard of Art Germ. I know he's popular. And so I figured, well, for $3 we can get something that looks really cool, and maybe at some point it'll be worth money. but it was really neat. It was really neat. So here's a couple books that not exactly speculation, but again, I was trying to find stuff to buy. Here is Detective Comics 854. It's the first Batwoman issue in the run. It's also the first appearance of someone named Alice Kane or something. I don't know. I don't even know what that means. But I do know that J.H. Williams is a tremendous artist. I think this run is significantly undervalued. I almost bought the other issues in the run because they did have most of them. They were all $4 each, but I just got the first one. I remember this making a lot of noise at the time when it came out, and that noise seems to have subsided. But I think this is an issue that for me should be worth more than it is, just based on the J.H. Williams art, if nothing else, but also with the first issue of this, what was at the time a really groundbreaking series with Batwoman, I think undervalued. So this is going to go in, it's not really part of my personal collection, I wouldn't think, but it's going to go in my sort of long-term hold. Maybe it'll be worth something. If not, I have a really cool looking comic with some tremendous artwork with a character that I really like. So, as you know, when it comes to speculating, that's generally how I work. If you buy stuff you think is cool, you're never going to go wrong. Even if it doesn't increase in value, you're going to have something that you like already. So that's the case here. And the other thing I picked up is this. It's a Batgirl #1. As you can see, it's a second printing. Some of these later printings are more valuable than the first printings, and that seems to be the case here. This is from 2000, cover dated April 2000. I did a quick look in the store when I saw the second printing thing, and copies on eBay seem to be selling. The sold listings around $20. So this is a book I'll probably end up reselling, but it was, I'm trying to... I know a lot about back issues from the 60s, from the 70s, from the 80s, and some from the 90s. But when you get to 2000 to the present, this modern stuff, I just don't know that much about it. I'm trying to educate myself. I actually spent a lot of time in some of these stores looking through Batmans and Detectives and Supermans and modern DCs that I don't know anything about, just trying to educate myself. So this is a book that I wasn't at all familiar with. It's not, it's not worth a ton of money, but it's something that, I think I can flip and make like $10 on, which doesn't sound like much. But considering the insane amount of money I spent on this trip at 10 comic book stores, every little bit helps. Anything I can get back to sort of defray my costs on everything else is a win, right? So I did want to mention the other thing about the store. It did have a bit of a smell. As you know, I'm very sensitive these days to mustiness in particular. It wasn't a musty smell. There's another comic store we're going to go to in a later video that was super musty, and I had to leave almost immediately because it was really bothering me. And so even though we'll talk about that then, it was a great store that I really hardly got to see. In this case, there was more of a smoky smell. It seemed like people have been smoking inside the store or something. I don't know if they have a smoking policy where you're allowed to smoke inside the store, or it's possible that the location used to be a vape joint. I don't know, but there was a distinct smoky smell in it that my wife in particular really disliked. For me, it's more a matter of breathing issues than smells, and it didn't really cause me too much breathing issues, but the smell wasn't great. So just if you're sensitive to those sorts of things, it might be a bit of an issue for you. Not an issue, however, at their other location, Double Midnight Comics' second location, which is down in Manchester. Now, this is a much bigger store, not physically, but in terms of the amount of back issues and comics they have way more in the Manchester location than they did at the time I was there in Concord. Again, they're ramping things up in Concord, so that may be different if you go now, or whenever you go, it might be different. But when I was there, they had a lot of stuff at the store in Manchester. I bought, what I'll show you in a minute, I bought one very specific thing, but they had a lot of keys up on the wall. They had a lot of cool back issues. They did have some older stuff. They didn't have any romance, though. And unfortunately, the few Archies they did have, I didn't need those either. So in terms of my personal collecting, I didn't actually get anything from my personal collection at the store. But they did have some really cool stuff. I wasn't able to get any footage on the inside because there were so many people there. But I got two things. One of them I don't have here anymore because it's going to be the subject of my next video on this coming Monday. And that is, they had mystery boxes. They had a blind box, and what it said was that it had 100 comics in it, plus or including at least $25 worth of variant covers. The price for the whole box was $35. So I thought, well, it'll be fun to open that box and see what's inside. There might be something cool in there. And if there is something cool that's actually valuable, worth $25 in terms of variant covers, I can add it to my trading challenge because I will have only paid 35 cents for it, right? That was my rationale. I'm not going to show you those comics here because I did a whole video in my hotel room where I opened that box, and you can play along and you can find out for yourself how I did. That'll be on Monday, but I bought that, not shown here. The other thing I got was this, and this was something that I bought kind of for someone. I thought that a friend of mine, a comic book friend on the forums, needed these. It turns out that he already had them, and I was just like way behind. But it is the last 10 issues of Sandman Mystery Theater. Now, I've talked a lot about this. I did a whole podcast series about Sandman Mystery Theater. This is my favorite series in comics. I love Sandman Mystery Theater. The last 10 issues or so have a really low print run because the series wasn't selling very well. They were only printing 2 order. And so some of these can be really hard to find, but also some of them can be quite expensive. So I'll just show you the last issue. I have all of them, 61 through 70. Here's issue 70. You can see that I paid $8 for it. I paid a total of $40 for the whole lot of these, so an average of $4 each. This issue, just this one sells for $40 on eBay. There's multiple sold listings on eBay around $39.99, that $38, $40. So since my friend didn't end up needing these, totally fine. I'm going to end up flipping them and selling them on eBay to get my money back. I don't know how much money I'll be able to make. I think I'll be able to make some. It's actually a little bit trickier that I have the whole lot. If I was just buying to flip and sell, I probably would have only bought like the last 4 or 5 issues. The last 2 in particular, were 14 for the last 2. And that's something where I think I probably could have got 60 or 65 back for them. But I ended up getting all the rest of them. And so I'll probably sell them as a whole lot. But you don't see these very often. They're very hard to find. And they're absolutely worth every dime. Part of the reason they're so expensive is these have never been collected. I think you can probably read them online if you have the DC app or whatever. But if you don't want to read comics digitally, I think they only collected the first arc of Sandman Mystery Theater, maybe the first couple in trade form, but they stopped doing it after just a couple trades, and most of the series has never been collected anywhere. And so these last issues with a small print run, really hard to find and absolutely great. That last issue, the last 2 issues, but the last one in particular, the best ending to any series that I've ever read. I love it so much. You can watch the podcast that I did about it to find out why. But yeah, so again, Monday you'll get to see what I got out of that blind box. And it was fun to open because it's a Christmas present for myself. But really cool store. I thought they definitely had a lot more at the Manchester location than the Concord location. So if you're in the area, now Manchester and Concord are close together. They're only like, on the interstate, they're only like, 16, 17 minutes apart. So from one comic store to the next was only like 22 minutes, including all the time getting off the highways and driving through town. So they're real close together. You might as well go to both of them if you're driving through the area. both double midnights. You can stop at Collectibles Unlimited. They're all clustered together. So it's, again, like in Keen, it's great to just do them all at once. And you know, maybe you find something really cool there, because there are some cool shops. So let me know what you think down below. And next time around, we're going to have 2 more comic book stores to show you. I'll see you then.